Hollywood scandal that's been making headlines. The one with Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni?
Oh, yeah, that's a juicy one.
Right. So it all stems from, accusations of misconduct on the set of their new film, It Ends With Us. We're going to be reading between the lines, looking at the evidence, see what we can actually piece together.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating to unpack how quickly public opinion forms, especially when it comes to celebrities. We see one headline and suddenly we've made up our minds.
Totally.
So we're going to break down the information, how it's being presented, and what it really reveals about the situation.
Right. And maybe even more importantly, how narratives get built and potentially manipulated in the court of public opinion. So let's get into it. Blake Lively is accusing Justin Baldoni of some pretty serious misconduct during filming. She claims there was suggestive whispering, unwanted touching, even harassment.
Those are some heavy accusations. I think it's important to really understand the context here. Suggestive whispering, for example, that can be interpreted in so many ways.
Right, yeah.
What was actually said, what was the content of those whispers? Were they even related to the scene or the script?
I see what you mean. Yeah, those details definitely matter. So the article does mention one specific scene, a silent montage, where Blake claims most of this alleged misconduct happened. And get this, there's actually TMZ footage of that very scene.
TMZ.
Yeah.
Now, that is interesting. That footage is often raw and unedited. It gives us a real glimpse behind the curtain. So what does it actually show?
Okay, so instead of the inappropriate behavior that Blake describes, the footage actually shows her and Justin interacting in a really playful and flirty way. There's giggling, nuzzling, joking around. They even seem to be rehearsing lines in this lighthearted way. It honestly looks more like two actors workshopping a scene than anything remotely scandalous.
That's so interesting. So we have this big discrepancy between Blake's accusations and what the TMZ footage actually shows. Does this footage point to a consensual and collaborative environment? You know what I mean? Or is there a subtle power dynamic at play that's not obvious at first glance?
Right.
That's something we really need to analyze closely.
Okay, so we've got these two conflicting accounts already, and then things get even more complicated. Because now, Megyn Kelly enters the picture. And she says she's done her own investigation and claims to have a ton of evidence that contradicts Blake's story.
Okay.
We're talking text messages, behind-the-scenes videos, the whole 9 yards.
Megyn Kelly, now that's a name that always sparks conversation. She's known for her investigative approach, and her involvement definitely adds another layer to this whole thing. So she's claiming to have this evidence that challenges Blake's account, but we have to ask, what kind of evidence is it really, and how credible are her sources?
Yeah, exactly, right? It's like a real-life whodunit. But here's where things get really interesting. The text messages. Apparently, Blake was the one initiating contact with Justin. And we're not just talking, friendly hellos here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
This changes things.
Right.
The article actually describes these texts as flirty, even including invitations to hang out while she was breastfeeding. If this is true, this definitely challenges the image Blake is trying to present as, the victim in this whole scenario.
Right. It definitely makes you wonder what motivated her to send those messages if she genuinely felt uncomfortable with Justin's behavior on set.
That's the big question, isn't it? I mean, is there more to the story than we're seeing at the surface? These text messages really complicate the whole narrative, and they make us question the nature of their relationship, beyond just work.
Absolutely, and it gets even more twisted. Apparently, Blake's legal team has been working behind the scenes, leaking info to the media and trying to control the narrative through all these carefully planned PR moves.
That's textbook in these high-profile cases. The goal is always to shape public perception and potentially sway, future jurors. Remember that whole accusation about Justin's producing partner showing Blake pornography? Turns out it was just a family photo, totally taken out of context.
Whoa, are you serious? That's a huge misrepresentation of what actually happened. Makes you wonder how much of what we're hearing is actually true.
It's a good reminder that we always have to be critical of the information we consume, and we have to consider different perspectives.
Okay, so we've got Blake trying to control the narrative. But Justin isn't taking things lying down either. He's filed a countersuit accusing her of trying to silence him and ruin his reputation. And his team is hitting back hard, releasing their own evidence, including more text messages, and get this, a nearly 7-minute long voice memo.
Wow. Justin's countersuit and his team releasing their own evidence is a clear sign that they're fighting back. They're not just on defense, they're actively challenging Blake's version of events. And that voice memo, that could be a real game changer.
It totally could, and we have got to talk about it. But that's a story for part 2 of our deep dive. You won't want to miss this. All right, so we're back, and you know where we left off. That voice memo that Justin Baldoni's team released as part of his countersuit against Blake Lively. And just to recap, she's accusing him of misconduct, but his team is painting a totally different picture. So this voice memo, it's almost 7 minutes long. Which, in legal terms, that's saying something.
Yeah, a voice memo that long, it can't just be a casual, hey, what's up? It's got to have some serious content, right? It could be details about their interactions, their intentions, their understanding of the whole situation.
Exactly. So what does this voice memo actually reveal? Well, according to our sources, Justin sounds super apologetic, like almost to the point of begging. He's trying to smooth things over with Blake, pleading with her to understand his side.
That's interesting. I mean, that doesn't really fit the image of an aggressive harasser, does it? Why would Justin be so apologetic if he truly believed he did nothing wrong?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just a simple apology either. He's like walking on eggshells, super careful about every word he says. At one point, he even says something like, I would never intentionally hurt you. You know that, right?
It sounds like he's terrified of messing things up with her, professionally and personally.
Yeah, so the question is, what's he actually apologizing for? Is it specific actions that Blake found offensive, or is it more like a general apology, for any misunderstanding?
Right. It's hard to tell for sure. Is this genuine remorse, or is it just a strategic move to save his reputation? Or maybe, like, a little bit of both.
It's tricky. And don't forget, this apology, it came before Blake filed her lawsuit. So Justin was clearly already aware that she wasn't happy, and he was trying to fix things privately.
Wow, that adds a whole other layer, doesn't it? Like, he knew something was about to blow up. But then there's another piece of this whole puzzle that I find really interesting. Blake trying to get a gag order placed on Justin at one point. A gag order? Wow, that's serious. They're not easy to get, They're usually meant to prevent the spread of information that could be damaging to a case.
Exactly.
So if Blake was trying to silence Justin, it makes you wonder why. Was she afraid he'd share his side of the story?
Yeah, it definitely makes you think. And speaking of controlling the narrative, we can't forget about the media's role in all this.
Yeah.
It's been a total feeding frenzy, right?
Oh, yeah. They're loving this.
Headlines screaming, toxic Hollywood. He said, she said, all that. They're eating it up.
Well, the media loves a good scandal, especially when it involves celebrities. And in cases like this, where you have these conflicting accounts, lots of emotions running high, it's easy for the narrative to get twisted.
Yeah, for sure. It's like they focus on the most dramatic, sensational parts of the story, even if it means sacrificing accuracy.
Exactly.
I mean, are they really trying to uncover the truth, or are they just chasing clicks and views?
It's a valid question. Look, they have a responsibility to report on these events, but they also have a responsibility to be responsible.
Yeah, to be fair and accurate.
Right. They shouldn't be resorting to sensationalism or perpetuating harmful stereotypes.
It's like they're more interested in creating a soap opera than reporting the facts. But you know what really gets me? Ryan Reynolds, Blake's husband, he's been totally silent throughout all of this. No public statement, no social media posts, nothing.
Ryan Reynolds,
Yeah.
Silent. That's definitely noticeable, especially given, how active he usually is on social media. In Hollywood, sometimes silence speaks volumes.
Right.
Is he staying quiet to avoid making things worse? Or does he know something we don't?
Yeah, it's deafening, this silence. You have to wonder what's happening behind closed doors. Is he supporting Blake? Does he have doubts about her accusations? We just don't know. But his lack of involvement adds a whole other layer of mystery to this whole thing.
It's like another piece of the puzzle that's missing. And people are going to speculate, right? They're going to fill in the blanks with their own story.
So to recap, we've got accusations flying back and forth, we've got conflicting evidence, legal maneuvering, the media frenzy, and then this very conspicuous silence from a key player. It's a lot to digest.
This whole case, it really shows how complicated these he said, she said situations can be, especially in the digital age. We're constantly bombarded with information from all these different sources, and they all have their own agendas. It's tough to figure out what's actually true, what's real and what's just spin.
Totally. And we can't forget the trial itself is still a long way off, March 2026.
Until then, the story is probably going to keep evolving. We can expect more leaks, more accusations, more attempts to control the narrative.
Oof. Yeah, it's going to be a long road to the truth. And who knows what other twists and turns are waiting for us. But you know what? We'll be here unpacking it all every step of the way.
All right, so we're back for the final part of our deep dive into this whole Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni situation. We've gone over a lot, from the accusations and leaked texts to that crazy voice memo and the media frenzy. But with the trial still, like, a year away, March 2026, I'm kind of curious about the legal stuff. Like, what are their actual strategies here?
Yeah, both sides are definitely lawyering up for this. This could be huge for their careers, so they're going to be fighting hard. Their legal teams are meticulously crafting their narratives, trying to control the spin. Every single detail matters.
Right, so what's Blake's team focusing on?
Well, from what we've seen, they're really hitting hard on those Hollywood power dynamics.
Yeah.
Emphasizing that Justin was the director and producer of It Ends With Us.
Yeah.
So he had that authority, that power over Blake on set.
Yeah, that makes sense. Fits into that classic narrative of, like, the powerful man taking advantage of the woman. Exactly. They're also trying to, build a case around Blake's initial accusations, trying to show that Justin had a pattern of inappropriate behavior.
But hold on. Wouldn't Blake, as a successful actress, also has a certain level of power in Hollywood?
Oh, absolutely. That's a good point. But power dynamics can be really complicated, especially in a creative industry like this. Blake's team could argue that even though she's successful, she was still in a vulnerable position on that specific film set.
Okay, I see what you mean. So what about Justin's legal team? How are they fighting back?
Well, they're being very aggressive. They're basically picking apart every piece of evidence that Blake's team has presented, highlighting any inconsistencies in her story, and presenting their own counter-evidence to back up Justin's side.
So I'm guessing those leaked texts and that voice memo we talked about are playing a big role in their strategy.
Huge role, yeah. They're using those to paint Justin as the one who was trying to be reasonable, the one who was trying to resolve things peacefully. And they're trying to cast doubt on Blake's motivations, suggesting that maybe she had other reasons for making these accusations.
Like what? They think she might be trying to, damage his reputation on purpose?
It's a possibility. They're definitely exploring. They're pointing out the differences between, what she said privately to Justin in those texts and what she's saying publicly now.
Wow, this is getting intense. It's like a high-stakes legal chess match, and they're both playing to win. So what are some of the possible outcomes here?
Well, if Blake's team can convince a jury that Justin did engage in misconduct, he could be in big trouble.
Yeah, we're talking serious financial damages, legal fees, maybe even his career could be over.
Exactly. But on the flip side, if Justin's team can discredit Blake's accusations, she could face serious consequences too.
Right, like her reputation could be ruined, she'll have her own legal fees to deal with, and it might be harder for her to get roles in the future.
Yep, it's a double-edged sword. And we can't forget about the possibility of a settlement.
Oh yeah, that would probably be the best for both of them. Avoid a long, messy public trial. But is that likely, do you think?
It's really hard to say. Settlements often come down to a cost-benefit analysis for both parties. They have to weigh the risks of going to trial against the potential benefits of just, making a deal.
This whole thing is it really highlights how complicated power dynamics are, especially in an industry like Hollywood.
Absolutely. And it makes you think about how we handle these accusations of misconduct, how we protect the people who might be vulnerable, while also ensuring that everyone gets a fair hearing.
Yeah, that's a really important point. It's such a tricky balance to find. But it's something we need to keep talking about, even if it's uncomfortable.
Absolutely. These conversations are crucial. And we need to have them beyond just this specific case. We have to challenge those systems that allow misconduct to happen in the first place and work towards creating safer and more equitable environments for everyone.
Couldn't agree more. Well, this has been a wild deep dive, hasn't it? Fascinating and honestly a little bit disturbing too. But like you said, it's bigger than just Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. It's a story that raises so many important issues, and it's a story that's going to keep going long after we're done here.
It's a good reminder that even in Hollywood, behind all the glitz and glamour, there are real people with real problems.
That's a good point. Well, thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll definitely keep you updated as this case develops. In the meantime, keep thinking critically and remember to question everything you hear. Until next time.